You're watching E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Share and subscribe.
Hooked on a feeling, I'm high on believing.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video we're going to do a review for Guardians of the Galaxy. This will be a non-spoiler review. And the movie starts off basically with Peter Quill, later to be known as Star-Lord, after his mother's death, shortly after, actually right after, he basically gets abducted by the Ravagers, a bunch of space pirates, and for the next 26 years is basically with them. I guess some sort of ways raised by a pirate named Yondu, and I guess kind of like his father figure, always in the movie stressing to Peter how he saved him from getting eaten and things like that. So, and Peter sets off on a little mission to obtain an artifact, which turns out to be very valuable. And once he has it in his hand, pretty much everyone's after him. Although, with the exception of Raccoon, who him and Groot are bounty hunters, but this is what sets everything off. They all get into like a big squirrel on the planet Xandar, and that's where it leads to what everybody saw from the very first trailer with them going and getting arrested. And, you know, the movie from there takes off, and I don't really want to get too into detail because, you know, the spoilers, and there's some really good moments in this movie that I wouldn't want to spoil for you, so I will do that in a separate review for those who don't mind being spoiled. But from that point on, the movie definitely goes in a direction where it progresses very nicely. It flows very seamlessly, and I gotta be honest, I thought they did a fantastic job getting done and accomplishing what they did with this movie in 2 hours, because you know it is a fairly big cast. You know, outside of the core group, you still have other characters that have to be somewhat developed, and I thought they did a great job with that. Now, in terms of the core group, you know, you have Drax, Rocket, Groot, Star-Lord, Quill, all right, and Gamora, and they each had they definitely all had their fair share of screen time, and you see how this ragtag group gets along because of things that they've been through in the past, and you can see why they are untrustworthy and why they don't trust others, but they get into a situation where they have to trust each other, and that's where the movie really kind of hits home. That's where it really comes from the heart, because for the first time in basically their lives, you figure they're putting their heart, they're putting themselves on the line for each other for the greater good, which is something they've never done before. And that's where it kind of really gets good, and that's what I like about it. The special effects were fantastic, you know, top notch. You know, I think the reason this movie is so successful is because, number one, it's very fresh. It's very fresh in the sense that it's a sci-fi movie. It's definitely got action, but it's got a lot of other elements in it. Obviously, the action element is in the forefront, but they throw in just enough seasoning of emotion and drama, and comedy is probably the second biggest seasoning in this movie, to really blend it well together to make basically a well-seasoned movie, I guess. But it just... I think the other reason it's so successful so far and it's getting such praise is because when was the last time we got such a very good space sci-fi movie that wasn't a reboot? I mean, we can talk about Star Wars from back in the early 2000s and the recent Star Trek movies and stuff like that. But this is the first time we've gotten an action-packed sci-fi that doesn't say Star Trek or Star Wars that's really this good. You know, I know there may have been others, I'm sure, in the last couple of years, but that goes to show you maybe just how good they were, because I can't even remember them right now, and I'm sure I saw them because I like sci-fi movies like this. I liked Ronan. He wasn't in the movie very much, but I liked that character, and I thought I would have liked to have seen more of him. Let's put it that way. I would have loved to have seen more of him, but I'm not disappointed overall. I think the important thing here was to establish the Guardians, and that's what was done here. The comedy was fantastic. I mean, I think some people will have an issue with it because there were times that it came in where you kind of like, there were times where the comedy happened where you thought you were going to get a nice moment, and then they threw in a joke, and it kind of felt like it could go either way. Like, some people would love it, and then some people were like, there was really no need for that there. And I can see some people complaining about that. It's not that I was disappointed. I'm the kind of person, I'm kind of in the middle. Like, had they gone either way at these particular scenes where it was questionable, I would have been fine with it. I would have been fine with it because I love comedy as well. So in terms of the casting now, that's where I got to give the most kudos. And the reason is because when you're, and I'm not saying casting, but in general, when you're putting people or you're employing people to do things, you want to put them in a position to succeed. You know, it's like hiring a cook and making him a dishwasher. You know what I mean? And then taking the dishwasher and then making him a cook. They're not in positions where they can succeed. This movie, I thought every cast member was in a position where they were successful. I think David Bautista was probably the best choice for Drax because people can debate all they want about whether or not he acted good in the movie, but I think the character calls for what he did. So I think in this case, it's hard to really determine whether or not he was a good actor because I think the character Drax calls for what David Bautista brought to the table. That's my opinion. I thought Chris Pratt was perfect as Star-Lord. I mean, my biggest fear when I saw the trailer was that he was going to be one of those hero characters that weren't taken seriously. Kind of like Kick-Ass, where you go see the Kick-Ass movie and he's the centerpiece, but Hit Girl does all the work. This movie's not like that. Star-Lord, yes, he's comedic, he's funny, you think he's going to trip up, and when push comes to shove, he's a kick-ass character. So I was very happy with that. I thought Zoe Saldana was fantastic as Gamora. One thing that I thought I was going to see from her was more of a cold-hearted assassin. So I was very happy to see her bring some of that emotion into the character. And she's done well with that. You know, in Avatar, she did very well bringing out the emotion. And I can't remember her name at this time. It's been a while. But if you've seen Avatar, you know the role she plays. And this one, too. I mean, she was kick-ass when she needed to be. She came off cold-hearted when she needed to be. And she lowered her defenses and made herself vulnerable at the perfect times when the character called for it. And I thought that Zoe Saldana delivered that very well. I was very pleased with all the core characters. Obviously, Bradley Cooper voicing Rocket was fantastic. I mean, that was probably one of the best voice acting performances in recent years. I mean, his one-liners are great. The character itself was emotional, CGI-wise, but Bradley Cooper did a good job conveying that with his voice to match what we saw on screen. So I thought that was a fantastic job as well. And Groot was just Groot. I mean, Vin Diesel should do more voice acting overall. I mean, he didn't have very many lines in this movie. But if you've seen The Iron Giant, that's one thing I think, that's one place where I think Vin Diesel shines, is voice acting. Not that I haven't enjoyed seeing him, but I think voice acting is the way to go for him in his future. I mean, you know, once he gets a little bit older, I think that's just where he should nail it. And then the supporting cast was great. Another example of a veteran supporting cast. Glenn Close, for the small time she was in it, was fine. John C. Reilly was fine. It was nice to see the Stan Lee cameo. He was in there. Michael Rooker, I mean, come on. Merle. I mean, he did great for the time he was in there. It was a very, very good movie. It was very surprising. And I actually lowered my expectations going in because of all the clout this movie was getting. I didn't want to set myself up for disappointment. But this is a movie that really does deliver. The only thing I got to say, with all this said and all this praise that I'm giving the movie does follow the Avenger formula. It does. This movie, 3 years from now, people will be saying the same thing they're saying about Avengers now, about this movie 3 years from now, and that it's overrated. it follows that same formula that worked for Avengers, and I'm not saying approaching that formula or taking that formula is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to take a movie as successful as Avengers and try to copy that formula again for success. So I think that's what's going to happen with this movie 3 years later, because you have the ragtag group. They do fight amongst each other. They are looking for an artifact that is very much like the Tesseract. Actually, I think they're both Infinity Stones. Well, they call them stones now. They were gems in the comic. So, I mean, it follows that same format. So, while the exterior of the film is very different from Avengers, the premise and the interior is the same. The core, the foundation it's built on, is very much the same. But that doesn't make it a bad movie in the least. It is a very fun movie. It definitely brings more emotion and more drama than Avengers did. Much I gotta say. But I would check it out. It's a pleasant surprise, probably the biggest surprise of the year. I gotta tip my hat off to Marvel for taking something that they own, something like the Guardians of the Galaxy that was not mainstream popular when it came out, even up to maybe recently because of this movie, just the anticipation, and really hitting a home run. I'm talking grand slam, 410 feet over the center field wall. This is Rob signing off for E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.
Thank you for watching E.T.N. Don't forget to subscribe and join the Nation Facebook page.